Welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. Today I have the incredible Rick, who owns Strom, coming in to talk to us about his life journey so far. I have known Rick for 8 years. 8 years. He just put 8 fingers up for me. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for that. 8 years from back when he started Strom. That's when did I know you then?
Yeah, no. I started Strom in Shrewsbury 8 years ago. I actually started Strom. How old am I now? 16 years ago. But my ex-wife relieved me of that business when we split up. So we started again 8 years ago, and that's when we met. We met just before that. Yeah,
before that.
from Valentine's.
You used to be the big scary guy who would come into the gym, lift really heavy weights, and all the old people would like tut at you.
Yeah, well, now I have the big scary people at my gym.
Yeah.
To keep them away from the older people. But as you found out on Saturday, they're all really lovely.
Yes, we did. So I took a group of 10 of the coaching club ladies to Rick's gym in Atcham, which is also where your store is, isn't it?
Yes.
And I was like, please, can we have the gym to ourselves? Like, don't want to scare the ladies with all these big scary men. And it was cleaned for us, and all the big scary men stayed away. And then when they did start to arrive, they were bloody lovely little kittens.
Yeah, I mean, what you tend to find, and I was younger when I met you, we were all younger, we're old now, is that the biggest, strongest guys are actually the loveliest because they've got nothing to prove at all.
So it's an ego game with anyone.
I mean, I certainly think as well, if you put those guys into an environment where they're very different to everyone else, it can become something that seems quite intimidating. But when they're all together on their own and they're all lovely, they're all fine. We've got one of the friendliest gyms I think I've ever been to. And we do have some people that aren't massive powerlifters that train there. But they all know to be on their best behavior.
I love that. And I am so excited to come and train at your gym because I was saying to someone yesterday, like, I've been a PT for 14 years. And I walked in and I was like, what the fuck is that? What do you do with this? And it's like a new playground.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we're missing, I guess, in terms of machines, but there's stuff that we've got that you won't find anywhere else. Because we are set up primarily for powerlifting. We are hoping to put in a mezzanine and have a little bit more kind of traditional gym equipment at some point, because our landlord has said we can be an actual gym if we want. Because at the moment, the setup, for those who don't know, Strom is our retail store and warehouse. But we also have a gym set up specifically for powerlifting in there. So it's not open to the public, apart from on a Saturday when you can come and use it. That's my heating. I live in a very old house. When the heating comes on, all the pipes creak.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like a commercial gym that you can come in and use. We allow PTs to use it in the day. The lads train in the evening, and then on a Saturday it is open gym for people to test their products. That's kind of the way we get around it. So no one pays to use the gym, but because no one pays to use the gym, I can tell people to sod off.
Yep. Sounds good. So tell me your story.
Okay, I didn't introduce myself at all, did I? My name is Richard Foster. I own Strom Sports Nutrition. I'm also an owner and director of FitX and Fit Expo, which is a bodybuilding federation and a fitness show. If you are looking for something to do in kind of 6 weeks' time, May 13th, 14th in Manchester, we have Fit Expo, which will have everything fitness related you can think of it. So like we had Phil Learney speaking last year. I know you're a fan of Phil Learney. We've got CrossFit, we've got calisthenics, we've got grappling, we've got bodybuilding, we've got powerlifting, we've got strongman, we've got log and deadlift, we've got an education stage, we've got coaching, all of that stuff, all the stuff you would expect at a fitness expo, but with a slightly more family feel than you might get at other expos that have existed in the past. That's in Manchester Central. I also have my hand in a few other supplement companies that I help out from a kind of consultancy role. I've competed in strongman and bodybuilding, not very well, but I've done it. I am the compere for the FitX show, so I'm the guy on stage in a suit talking nonsense when we run bodybuilding shows. And I've been in the supplement industry for 16 years now. We brought out the first of our own products around 6 years ago. Strom as a brand initially specialized in very much the hardcore bodybuilding and powerlifting scene, but now we do a whole range of products that are used by all sorts of people, and they go all over the world. I think we've got around 140, 150 retailers in the UK. We work with 4 distributors, and we're in about 30 countries. So that's kind of who I am and what I do. Although day to day, I do as little as possible now.
That's mad. And just like my brain instantly goes back to the first Strum in Shrewsbury, where did we paint like the wood chip board?
Yeah,
Like,
you were there day one.
yeah.
Day one when we very first opened, there was yourself, Stu Edwards, Lewis Pitcher, a couple of other people, and we did some promo content and stuff. And then I basically didn't see you for about 7 years.
You
You've been
did.
busy doing something.
Busy building a business, right?
Sure, yeah.
And now we're here.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I do. My background's primarily nutrition, which is something people still pay to talk to me about from time to time. But I don't get the time to do much of it. And nutrition is one of these topics. It's a bit like running a marathon, right? Running a marathon is incredibly simple, but it's not necessarily very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And nutrition's the same, regardless of how you break it down, regardless of how many seminars you go to. I think when you first start out at fitness, any of your clients, they're brand new to, and they know deep down, if I eat right, and you know what eating right is, people know if they eat mostly whole foods, so things that come from the ground or from an animal, and they don't overindulge, that they'll probably improve the way they look aesthetically and their health. And then you start to go down all sorts of rabbit holes about keto and carb backloading and fasting and a million other different things. And eventually you will come back to that point you were at the start where you're like, if I eat mostly like rice, potatoes, vegetables, and lean meat and fruit, and I don't eat a ridiculous amount of it, I'll probably make progress. And that's kind of where I'm back to with nutrition. Because it can become this incredibly complex topic. Actually, it's really quite simple. That doesn't mean that it's easy, and that's not to belittle anyone who's struggled with weight loss or weight gain. It can still be really difficult, but it's very simple.
So why is it overcomplicated?
Often to sell things, if all of these people that make money from providing diets and nutrition plans, because I think what you do is you say, look, it's really quite simple, but you might need some support with this, and I'm there to support you.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, if they are selling their super complicated diet plan, it needs to seem like something that needs explaining to you. Because if it is just try not to be an idiot, no one's going to pay for that. And it's the same with supplements. I think quite often as well, people are looking for that magic bullet. They're looking for that quick fix. I was talking to a guy just last week who's been really struggling with losing weight despite doing everything that he feels he should do. And he went through everything he's doing, and the amount of weight that he'd lost wasn't massive. I was like, wait a second, how long have you been doing this for? Oh, 3 weeks. But he's been overweight his entire adult life. That didn't happen in 3 weeks. And that particular case was something that I'm sure you get this. I didn't realize this was a thing now, but he was effectively MyFitnessPal had told him what his maintenance calories were. So he would eat his maintenance calories plus any calories that he was given via exercise because of his Whoop band, and then would take 500 calories off, which is not a thing.
No.
That's not a thing at all. But apparently this is a thing that people think it is now.
Why has he come to do it that way?
Because the internet told him to. I don't know. Because you can wear a Whoop band, right? And it will tell you you've burnt 1,000 calories doing a boxercise class. You absolutely haven't. I very much doubt I would burn 1,000 calories doing a boxercise class, and I'm 110 kilos. But there's almost information overload, right? Yeah, particularly with the diet industry. I've just bought a very good book actually by a guy called Ben Carpenter. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah. Love
so
Ben.
Ben used to come to Strom a lot because Ben was a rep for, what was the name of the company? Ben was a rep for, it was a supplement company. Anyway, they used to do a blended protein. I'm going to have to Google it because it's going to a lovely guy. He used to come to Strom all the time, and he's released a book, Everything Fat Loss, that really breaks things down and is simple and easy to read, and that's very, very good.
He went
PES, Physique Enhancing Science, an American company. That's who he used to work for. So even Ben, who's now a huge name, used to work in the supplement industry and was one of the good guys,
I find it fascinating because, like you say, it is simple. You know, it is mega simple. And you're looking at it from the approach of potentially that people are being swept away by, you know, shiny object. Whereas with the women I work with, it's so much more to do with emotions. It's
Sure.
to do with the fact that they have poor self-worth. So they're bottom of the pile, so they've got no energy. So then they're using food as a way to, you know, comfort themselves. So although the theory is simple, the application of the theory is not so, right?
Sure. Well, this is kind of what we saw on Saturday, is that your demographic is very, very different to my demographic. Although they may well have similar goals,
Mhm.
you know, different but similar. But yeah, no, the emotional eating thing. I think it still happens with guys. You know, we still speak to guys that have huge issues around that. People talk about this pressure on women to look a certain way, and I think there's just as much pressure on men. You know, have you seen Action Man? I don't look like Action Man.
Do they have they created like a larger Action Man these days?
But like fat Action Man.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. Probably. I mean,
yeah.
is there a fat Action Man? I
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
you've made that up.
Like a Barbie as well. Surely that needs to happen.
Um, no, I don't think there is a fat Action Man.
Yeah,
No.
I do. Yeah, the pressure, and this is I've just had a client call this morning with a lady, and she was saying the word should a lot. And I was like, mate, like, where is the should coming from? And that's the thing, you know, we feel like we should be in shape. We feel like we should, I don't know, go to the gym 5 times a week. And it's all the shoulds. Whereas I believe creating a long-term healthy lifestyle has to be unique to you. It doesn't need to be crazy, because that's stepping into the shiny object realms. But it's like, what actually works with me in this given moment? Because if we look at you, your healthy lifestyle now compared to your healthy lifestyle when I first met you like 8-9 years ago, talk to me about the difference of that.
Well, I guess if you were to look at a photo, I now have what you may describe as a dad bod.
Okay.
Um, but I do cardio every day. I run. I do MMA. I don't take any performance enhancing drugs. I'm probably the fittest I've ever been, apart from when I ran a marathon at 16. So I'm probably the fittest I've ever been as an adult. But I look aesthetically the least fit. I'm also the comfiest in my own skin, and I feel the healthiest that I've felt in a very long time. And that came about because I had a health scare a couple of years ago that turned out to be a viral thing. But I have a long history of performance enhancing drug use, and therefore when I had a health scare, we assumed that it was that come back to bite me. And it turned out it wasn't that at all, but it was enough for me to go, oh, right, actually, I've got kids. I need to sort myself out. Whereas if you go back 5-10 years ago, I still, photos come up on my timeline now, and I go, oh my God, I look fantastic. But I was probably very unhealthy. Now, there were things that I could have, I say I was very unhealthy. Nutritionally, things were pretty good. There were things I could have done then that would have made a dramatic improvement, like just doing cardio. So I've always considered cardio to be a quite poor tool for weight loss. I don't know what your opinion will be on that, but weight loss, regardless of what people like to tell you, because it's very controversial now, is calories in, calories out. I see lots of people saying it's not as simple as that. Well, it is, and if you think of cardio as a calorie expenditure tool, it does the same thing in weight loss terms as just not eating the calories in the first place.
But
But in
the ratios, right?
sorry,
But the ratio. So like to do, if I was to do an hour on the Stairmaster, I'd probably burn 150 calories.
yeah,
Okay. So that's not much expenditure.
no, it's not. But where cardio does come in massively useful is in terms of improving our health and improving
Yeah.
our fitness and improving our well-being. As proven by the fact that I now do more cardio than I've ever done. I'm also the fattest I've been, other than about a year ago when I was doing nothing. Cardio is not a great tool for fat loss, but it is a great tool for making you feel fitter, feel healthier. And if you feel fitter and feel healthier, as I'm finding these days myself, you do more. You have more energy. You do more things, and then your NEAT improves, your non-exercise energy expenditure improves, and your total output improves. And then you might be motivated to maybe improve your diet a little bit, because dropping a little bit of fat will make that cardio more enjoyable and a little bit easier, because cardio can be enjoyable, believe it or not. And the fitter you get, the more fun it becomes, which is why I started MMA, because I've been doing cardio for about a year and I was getting a bit bored with walking up the stairs of forever every day. So I wanted to do more active cardio. So MMA was something that's new and challenging. and still really difficult cardiovascularly. But if I tried to do that a year ago, I guarantee you I would have given up because I didn't have the baseline level of fitness to be able to engage with it.
It's like earn the right to progress almost.
Sure, yeah, that's as good a term as any. You know, in the same way that we get guys that come to the gym and say, I want to be a powerlifter, who haven't learned to just be a gym head.
Yeah.
And they'll lose interest in it very quickly because they haven't got that baseline level of strength.
Humbling. So when you look back at those pictures of you that hop up on your timeline and you're like, wow, like I used to be in good shape, and now you kind of see yourself now, how does that feel?
I don't understand why I get more attention from women now than I did then. That confuses me. That confuses me endlessly.
Hang on, let's dig into that. Why?
Why? Because I'm now old and grey and a bit fat.
Why do you think you now get more attention?
Probably because I've got a McLaren. I don't know. Are women that shallow? You tell me. Are women that shallow a creature, Sasha?
Do you know what I think? How women can be that shallow, so can men.
Yeah, so it's that. Okay, moving on.
No. We're not moving on. Right, I'm quite a hippie when it comes to stuff, right? Deep thinker. How connected to yourself were you when I met you 8 years ago? How welcoming was your demeanor?
Yeah, probably not so much.
I've got a very significant memory of when I do you know what I'm going to say?
No, I don't, but it's probably something jerky.
I walked into Strava. I was going to buy some protein powder or whatever, probably pre-workout back then. And you were furious. You were so aggy because you were in ketosis, because I think you were like a few days out from.
Yeah. So being in bodybuilding is great for business. Doing a bodybuilding show is not good for business. Yeah, not good for business at all. I think it's one of those things that as someone who's in the industry, I think it's something you've got to have experienced. But I'm so glad I didn't continue competing, because while I can now relate to people, it makes you a horrible person. Like the actual act of competing, and that's not entirely true, because I'm around bodybuilders all the time, right? So I'm at shows. I've got 15 shows to do this year, and all of those bodybuilders are going through that same process. And about 1 in 10 of them will become a cunt because of it. And 9 of them are fine, and the 9 of them that are fine should keep doing it.
Yes.
The 1 in 10 that can't deal with it. I can't deal with being. The thing you've got to understand about a prep, or thing people need to, they don't need to understand anything, but the reason you become the way you are is that the level of hunger and exhaustion isn't like normal diet and hunger, because it's fundamentally unsustainable. You talk about when you're dieting, when you're doing nutrition with people, you talk about making something that's sustainable. With a bodybuilding prep, it's inherently unsustainable. And it's only really your mental fortitude that makes you go, well, I'm going to keep doing this, because everything in your brain, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, is telling you, just go have a fucking sandwich. You'll feel much better. Just have a sandwich. Everything will be fine. But yeah, no, it is a process that I don't work well with. Sorry.
No, don't worry. Like I have only ever dieted, and nowhere near those realms, like properly, once for the photo shoot I did last year. And yeah, the level of energy that I did not have, and this was still on like 1,200 calories, being 61 kilograms. So it's not the biggest of deficits, and only for an 8 to 10 week period. So I get it to a very small degree. But so is it the McLaren, or is it the fact that actually now, because I look at you now, you're warming, you're welcoming, you've got a great sense of humor. Obviously, you might have
not hungry.
You're not hungry.
Yeah.
You're like, you seem kind. So is it that it's, maybe just a shift in it, how the energy that you put out potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect on a serious note that just being older is, for men, a positive. Men age like fine wine. Women, more like milk.
Oh, you reckon?
I don't think I can say that on your podcast. I'll get cancelled.
Why so?
Obviously, I don't mean that.
Come on.
No, men are generally more desirable as they're older. I think they have more life experience. They're slightly more mature. I think at 35 you can be immature for 35, but compared to a 25-year-old, you're doing fine. Because I'm not the most mature of people. Yeah, I don't. This is not something that I've really considered in great depth.
I love it. This is what this podcast is all about.
Is it asking
Yeah.
old men why they think they're more attractive now than they were?
I think that's ace. I think it's so good to dig into, because some people would go down the other route of like, and especially women actually, especially someone who's my age, so 31 and on the shelf, so
A little
single.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, like, is this a old milk type situation?
You're not old milk yet.
Yet.
Yeah,
How long have I
yeah.
got?
About 8 years.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it's
But it's,
interesting.
it's it's different as well, because again, men used to be. So there's a book downstairs called Masculinity, which is about the masks that men wear and about how masculinity isn't always a bad thing. And you should buy it because there's 4 pages in there about me. And I spoke in there about how I think men are traditionally valued for what they can offer, right?
Yes.
I think it's Kevin Hart who said like only women and dogs are valued when they don't provide anything, something like that. So men are traditionally valued for what they can bring to the table. And if they suddenly can't bring anything to the table, their value diminishes significantly. And then the saying used to be, what Kevin Hart was alluding to, is that women are valued based on just their presence. But that's changing. There are more and more women that do, like yourself, run their own business, bring a lot more to the table than just a thing to have. So I think that paradigm's changing, and obviously with that changing, women who are older will generally bring a little more to the table.
Okay, so that's fine wine material then.
Sorry?
That's fine wine material. So if women, as they get older, they'll bring more.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said wine material. Yeah. No, potentially to a point, but I think there is that shift.
I find it fascinating, and I was speaking to Dan Wines about this yesterday around, relationships in this day and age, and how it's interesting because men generally want someone who hasn't been around the block too much.
Oh, I can care less. That means you've practiced.
I love that.
Look, if I was required to give a list, which you haven't asked for, of what I would look for in a female,
Go.
I I've thought about this a lot over the last few years, and I would want someone who doesn't need anything from me, but still wants to be with me. Now, that doesn't mean they need to have loads and loads of money and loads of material things, but they need to be able to support themselves and not need me to exist. That means, unfortunately, if you're living at home, something like that, that's not gonna fly for me. And I think that's just because I have found myself in a position where I feel like I've been used as a little bit of a bank account on occasion. So that's my kind of primary thing that I look for, is someone that's self-supporting, right? Because if you've got two people that can support themselves and those people come together into one team, you can potentially do an awful lot. Because both of those people were flourishing on their own.
So what they come to you for then, if they come
we're going to come to you because they enjoy your company and your personality and they want to spend time with you, rather than because they can get things. I think you were saying, Dan was saying, people who maybe don't want a lady that's been around the block too many times. I don't think that's much of a worry anymore, is it?
It's looking at it from different angles, isn't it? Because, if we go down the feminism route, it's very much like women can do the same as what men do. So if a woman wants to shag around there and a man can do it, why can't a woman?
Yeah.
But then if you look at it from so he said a really interesting quote that was like, women want to get married, but they don't want to be a wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's powerful. And why has
but
that?
there are women, and I'm speaking for a gender that I know nothing about, clearly. There are women that want to be a wife still, and there are women, I've spoken to people, there are women that still want a man to be a traditional man. There are people that still want that traditional dynamic. I don't know how many of those women there are anymore, but there are definitely people that want that traditional dynamic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I want to rewind because we've gone on a tangent there. How do we get onto that? We talked about
You were flirting, and then it just progressed from there.
okay, standard flirting. So
Yeah.
we delved into
Are
why
you
more
blushing?
women. Me blushing. Come on,
You are, man.
come on. You can't do that to me. We were talking about how people fancy you more now, apparently, compared to when you're an absolute.
Just my perception. Yeah, just my perception.
So yeah, the difference between what you see now in regard to physique, like, are there any?
As a businessman, there was a lot of pressure in my own head that I needed to maintain a certain physique to be seen as credible.
Yeah.
And then through no fault of my own, I got ill, became a bit fat, realized that people still value my opinion just as much. And that was a huge turning point for me. One that was incredibly relieving.
Mm,
Takes a huge amount of pressure off. But you know, it's relevant. If you decided right now, actually, I'm going to eat cake and I don't want to do any more exercise because I've done exercise for 15 years and I've just had enough. I'm just sick and tired of it. And you gained 5 stone. That wouldn't mean you would know anything less. In fact, 4 or 5 years down the line from now, you would still know more because you've accumulated more knowledge.
mm,
But you might not look a certain way. And it's difficult. But I mean, you were a PT when I first met you, and obviously you've progressed to something a little bit different now. But there are a lot of PTs that feel a huge amount of pressure on themselves to look a certain way. And on the flip side, there are other people who are hugely critical of PTs that don't look a certain way. And I'm sure we've all seen that. And I don't think that's always entirely fair. Like there's a guy over at Strong Yes called Mike Lang. He's an MMA and jiu-jitsu combat sports nutritionist. He doesn't compete in combat sports, but he's one of the best in the world at what he does because he understands. Because he knows his job, because he knows what he's doing.
mm. There is that whole, it's like a belief that stands out in my mind is you can't have a fat PT.
I don't know. What do you think?
I genuinely think I stand by it. I stand by
You don't
the
like fatties?
no, I stand by the opposite. Sorry. So I'm all like you do you, boo. And I think like this is where we look at societal conditioning and we go, okay, so society tells us we need to look a certain way, we need to have a certain car, we need to have X amount of money. Like this is all conditioning from society. A
Yeah.
big part of why I do what I do is about stepping out of the realms of societal norms and expectations. Now, I suppose the way to look at it is the coaches that I have. I work with Joe Parrish as my coach because he's great at helping me to think outside the box. I also work with him because of his energy and because he maintains a great physique whilst he's married and runs an incredible business. So they're the 3 points I work with him. If he wasn't in great shape, but he was still fit, would I work with him? Yes. So, but then I don't know, because then if I look at it,
Is that more to do with your values in terms of what you look for someone and in terms of what you respect in an individual
yeah,
than it necessarily making him a better or worse coach?
does it impact his ability to coach at all?
Yeah. But it's just something that you respect.
Yeah, it's something that I value.
Yeah.
I see how hard it is to stay in shape. And the fact that he can do that with 100 coaches underneath him is insane, I think.
100 coaches underneath him.
Yeah, so he coaches coaches.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke the other day about I've got friends who coach that kind of number of clients, but not that number of coaches, because that number of coaches, they're all going to have clients underneath them. And although I guess you would hope that coaches are a little bit more self-starting.
So generally you'll find that coaches are motivated to do the training and nutrition side of things. Generally, not always. It usually depends on kind of maturity of the coach. But what he is also helping with is business.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think it's something that I value, but does it impact how that person is as a coach, mentor, personal trainer? Absolutely not. Not in my opinion.
The conversation I had with someone the other day regarding exactly this topic was that it's super situationally dependent. You know, there are PTs that I know of that have never been in shape, whose knowledge is poor, who I don't understand why they have any clients. Those people exist. Let's not pretend they don't. There are other people I know that have done incredible things that it's not a priority for, who are still really good PTs. There are all sorts of shapes and colors in between those 2 points. So you really can't say, oh, there shouldn't be any fat PTs. It really depends. There might be some fat PTs that are absolutely unbelievable. There might be a fat PT that is, I don't know, an ex-jiu-jitsu world champion, and he PTs people specifically for combat sports, and now he's not interested in training himself, but he's got 2 decades of knowledge. And there are people that are just not very good. So there's a thing that's in the process at the moment. I think we spoke about it on Saturday when you were there, called Pro Athlete, that a friend of mine's setting up. And the idea is that it's going to be like TripAdvisor for coaches. And I think resources like that are going to become more and more useful, because there are people who do coaching and that PT that aren't very good and will just take people's money. And we've all heard horror stories about them. And there are people like yourself, people like Christian, that offer really, really good service. And that should be not rewarded. It's rewarded via the work you do with your clients, but that should be supported and kind of held up as an example of this is what the industry could be and should be.
Standards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Same as we have with like everything that we do is audited and overviewed. Every product we make has paperwork and a paper trail and is reviewed and licensed and so on. But anyone can decide they're a coach. And that's a problem, because there are people like yourself that have put 10 years into it that are really, really good. And there are other people who go, oh, I fancy a side hustle.
Yeah.
And not everyone needs a side hustle.
All can handle a side hustle.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So talking about that then, because what that takes my brain to is thinking about like the why behind why we do what we do. What is yours?
I don't play well with others.
Okay.
So I need to be self-employed. I medically need to be self-employed.
You medically need to
be self-employed. Yeah. So the goal with Strom was originally just to be a retailer. I moved to Shrewsbury, so I had a small supplement shop in Bala in North Wales. I moved to Shrewsbury, and there was no supplement shop, and that for a town the size of Shrewsbury, particularly when there wasn't one in Telford either, seemed crazy. So I opened one, and initially that was just, I just want to work for myself. I don't want to work for someone else. If I can earn, I think I said initially I wanted to earn 20 grand a year. I'd be quite happy with that, because that was kind of what I would be earning in another job anyway. I used to do care work. That was the goal. And through doing that, it allowed me to completely focus on my own bodybuilding, become a little bit obsessive with that. And I became painfully aware that the UK supplement industry was lacking a lot of things. So I was having to buy a lot of products from America. I was having to buy a lot of stuff from Europe, particularly for assisted bodybuilding and performance enhancing drug use. Strom started as a company for proper bodybuilders. Performance enhancing drug use was rife, and no one was making products or providing easy access to products that can improve the outcomes for people using performance enhancing drugs, health related products. So we made our own product. I put all my savings into this product called Support Max about 6 years ago, which was the first product of its kind. And it was designed to be all of the things that someone who's taking PEDs should take alongside their PEDs, all in one product, rather than you having to take 7 or 8 different products. And I was very fortunate at the time that I used to speak to a guy called James Hollingshead, who's now a very well-known IFBB pro. I used to speak to Ben Chow. I used to speak to Luke Sandow, who sadly passed away. And these guys all ran a podcast called The Size Game. And they were very much the top boys, or the Banji Damaji as well. But they were very much the top boys in UK bodybuilding. So there was James, who at the time was going for his IFBB pro card, Luke, who was the top British IFBB pro at the time. And I spoke to them about it, and they all bought the product. So I put all my savings into running this batch of product. I was like, if no one buys it, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. And they bought the product at full price, and they spoke about it on their podcast. And that was at the time when there was only a few podcasts. So they got big listens, right? And they talked about it, and then about a month after, they said that they'd had their blood work done, and they'd seen improvement in various markers, right? Just a month later, and it sold out. So the whole batch went as soon as they said that. Because they've mentioned it and then they said, right, we've got our blood work back and it's shown a real significant improvement. And suddenly we were getting orders from all the other top UK bodybuilders. So we got another batch done and that sold out as soon as it landed. And this went on for about 2 or 3 months in that the batches would come in, they'd sell out straight away, come in, sell out straight away. And it then just snowballed from there. So I started looking at, well, what other products, because I was still very much into my bodybuilding at the time, started to look at what other products we could do, what products did I need. And we've now got this massive comprehensive range of health products. There's products that my mum uses, there's products that my dad uses, there's products that my nan uses, because we do a whole range of health related things now. Because the products were always, health related product was always the core of what we were doing. But that's kind of how it all snowballed. So I'm eternally grateful to those guys. Every time I see James, I thank him. And every time I thank him, he's like, honestly, I just used a product and it was good. And that was it. Like, you don't have to keep going on about it. It annoys him. But that really was the moment that made us. And I've had people say to me, if you were going to start a supplement company now, what would you do? I was like, I couldn't do it now because the market's so saturated. So there are 3 or 4 brands that very much kind of not copy us, but they're in a similar vein and they're always a little bit behind us. And that the market is just chocker. But we were really lucky with our timing, and I was so lucky that those guys got behind it. And they weren't sponsored, they weren't paid to say any of that. They bought the products, But I think that holds more weight than free product.
That's amazing. Just goes to show how like something that could have potentially just like they could have tried it and nothing came of it.
Oh, it could have disappeared. Yeah, it could have just been. I genuinely believe if it hadn't taken off in the way it had, I'd still be in a shop in Shrewsbury and I'd still be doing okay as a supplement retailer. I work with a lot of supplement retailers, lots of those guys that just sell other people's products. They make a good income, they do okay. But what we do now is so far removed from what we used to do back then.
So have you read the book The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek?
No, I read The Sea of Sorrows, the Aliens novel, this week.
Okay.
I don't read as much as I would like to at the moment, because it's probably not a very cool thing to talk about, but I've been really struggling with just getting off this. I used to read all the time. I'll sit down and read, and you'll get like a chapter in, and then you'll check your phone, and then you're on your phone for half an hour. And so I need to deal with that because it's a problem. I used to love to read. No, the last year I've really struggled because I don't have to go to work anymore, but I have to be on this.
Yeah. And then we have a limiting belief that we need to be on our phone working, whereas actually we're just scrolling Instagram potentially.
Yeah, quite often.
Okay, so it sounds like Strom as a business has evolved as you've evolved.
Yeah. So I was checking my phone.
We just talked about that.
Yeah, I know. Well, you put it in my head, didn't you?
Leave it alone. So what is your infinite mission?
Huh?
What is your infinite mission? So when you're dead and gone, why have you built this business?
Oh, I mean, like, I can become deeply nihilistic if I go right down this train. None of it matters. Like in 300 years' time, no one's going to remember any of us. It doesn't matter. That's not a good topic of conversation for a Tuesday morning. My daughters are a huge motivator. I'm sure my mum and dad, if they ever listen to this, won't mind me saying we didn't have a lot growing up. My mum used to work on a market. My dad, what was dad doing when he worked in a place that printed tickets for like buses and trains and things. We didn't have a lot growing up, and we couldn't just do what we wanted, in terms of things. So I had a job at 15. I didn't finish school. I would very much like my daughter to be able to do whatever she chooses to do rather than what she needs to do. So that's a big motivator. And I would like to, I don't want to retire, but I'd like to get the business to a point where I can do a couple of days a week and then go off and do things the rest of the week, which I'm pretty much there now. I'm in the process of buying a house. Hopefully, I've got to bring my solicitor later. Touch wood. I'm in the process of buying a house. That if that all goes through, I don't think I'll ever need to move house again, and that's really exciting because I've moved house every year for 10 years now. So I'm ready to not have to do that again. And that's not like been like a povo thing. That's been a positive thing. I lived in a flat share, and then we lived in a house share, and it's kind of been progressing all that time. And every year for 10 years is probably, I think I lived in one place for 2 years.
That's mad.
So I'm looking forward to moving house into somewhere that I can stay forever. But it's fair to say that house has been financially a stretch. So that's a lot of pressure. So I'm going to have to work my bollocks off for the next 5 years to kind of get that all to where it needs to be. So yeah, no, I haven't got a particular mission, but I'd like my daughters to never have to worry about things.
That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. It's exciting.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not making any more children though, so
that's fine. That's on you, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 girls. I would have always quite liked a boy, but I've got 2 girls, and then I'm fixed. So that's me. That's me done.
Unreal. So we're going to hold it there. Where can people find you?
If they come down to Unit 32 in Action Business Park, they're unlikely to find me, to be honest. There's a chance, but it's not a big chance. Strom_sports_nutrition on Instagram, Strom Sports on Facebook, or email richard@stromsports.com. I do offer consultation work if people want, specifically to people to go through their supplement regime, more aimed at kind of competitive athletes, where if you are someone who's on a weight loss journey or something, you don't need a supplement consultation. If you're an elite athlete and you're looking at 1%, maybe there's a use there, and you can find a link for that in bio on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
See you later.